Okay, so welcome to today's webinar, Discover Inspiration 10. This webinar is hosted by the Network of Assistive Technologists on this Friday, the 23rd of October, 2020. Join us as we welcome TechEd Marketing, publishers of Inspiration for Windows. They will be showcasing the new features in version 10, including DiagramSync for the web and tree-style diagrams, the ability to drag and drop more media types and files into your Inspiration document for embedding or hyperlinking, and how to import text and RTF files to create topic symbols and outlines with accompanying notes, as well as Unicode support for non-English character sets. And get the inside scoop as they share their plans for the next update, and they'll be asking for your input as well on some of the upcoming features. Stick around to the end as you don't want to miss the details on how to claim a free copy of Inspiration 10 for training, demonstration, and assessment purposes. So from TechEd Marketing, we are joined today by Reeza Awoodun. Reeza is the publisher and product specialist for Inspiration 10 with over 20 years of experience in the EdTech and assistive technology sector. His focus is on marketing, product development, and product training. So, and for those joining today's session live, we have a very special opportunity at the end of the main presentation. Using the breakout room feature in Zoom, we're going to invite those who wish to join Reeza and continue the discussion after the main webinar. Ask your questions, have features demonstrated, and more. So at the end of the main session, you'll have an on-screen option to join the breakout room, and we look forward to having you join us. So with that said, I'm going to now hand the presentation over to Reeza as he starts his screen sharing and begins today's presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone, and hello. And for myself, it's the evening, and welcome for joining this session. So thank you, Doug, for that introduction and my background. So obviously, it saves me a bit of time in terms of explaining who I am. So just bear with us as I share my screen and share my computer sound, and hopefully my screen is now appearing for you all. And so, as Doug explained, what I'm going to be doing is giving you a demonstration of the new features that have been introduced into version 10. So version 10 was launched last month, but also to give you a glimpse into two key features that we're looking to include in our next major update of the software. What I'll also do is go through some frequently asked questions about version 10, but also have the opportunity to ask any questions that you've got live within this session itself. So if you want to put that into the chat pane or unmute yourself later on when we do the FAQ, then that would be great, and I'll be happy to answer your questions live within the session. So let's look at the agenda. So as I said, we'll be demonstrating the new features. We'll look at the next update to Inspiration. And I don't know, for some of you, you may have joined last year or the beginning of this year, actually, when we first did a demonstration of what we wanted to look at in Inspiration 10. We got some great feedback from the N.O.A.T community in terms of the things that we should be introducing into version 10, and some of that feedback did go into this release. So this is a great opportunity again, because we really did value the feedback from that, to show you two new features that we're looking to add to the next update to Inspiration, really to get your views and to see from your perspective which would be the priority in terms of what should we do first. And as I said, questions and answers at the end so that we can answer any of your questions live. So in terms of Inspiration 10, one was looking at an interface facelift, and that is a journey. That is something that will continue. And so what we've been doing is been touches to the interface just to freshen it up. And in each update, we will be adding new changes to the interface. So one of the big things was changing the default font. So before, it was Arial for the interface, for the diagram view, And if you went to export it to Word, it would have been Times New Roman. So this was one of the things that we put to vote in the last presentation that we did for the N.O.A.T community. And the winner was having Open Sans as the default font. So now with version 10, that is the font that's used in terms of one is its accessibility and just the fact it's a fresh modern font. And so you'll find that now within Inspiration, and that's the default for the diagram and outline view, as well as exporting out to Word. Now you can change that to whatever default font that you want within your preferences. If, say, for example, there's a preferred font that you've got. We've also added the ability to set a background color for your diagram and map view, because we realized, obviously, with the default in version 9, it was white. And for those students with color sensitivity issues, visual impairments, and just from a pure user perspective, white isn't always the preferred background color. And before, say in version 9, you could do that by creating a template and making that your default. But we wanted to make that easier. So within your default settings, you can set a background color, which when you create a new diagram, that's what it will look like. And that will be set for both your diagram and map view. We've also updated the toolbar icons, again, just to freshen it up, make it look a bit more modern. And these symbols here, the ones that are your default when you launch the application, these have been updated as well. They are a series of small changes. We didn't want to make radical changes to the interface. We wanted it to be a natural progression for those that were moving from version 9 and even from version 8. We have a lot of users globally for Inspiration. We wanted it to be a natural progression from previous versions. But as I said, it's a journey, something that will continue to update as we release new versions of Inspiration. Now, there are 3 key features that I want to show you today. And these are key features that, you know, through research, through talking to users, and also in terms of supporting the philosophy of Inspiration, were prioritized in terms of version 10. And one tool that I'm going to particularly focus on is DiagramSync. And so what this feature is the ability for a user to be able to synchronize the ordering of topics and subtopics within the outline view based on how they've rearranged or arranged their diagrams in the diagram view. And so the reason for that is, say in version 9, before, if say, for example, you mapped out your ideas visually and you were playing around with it, resorting stuff out, and you went to your outline view, you could always change your outline view sequencing just by dragging and dropping. We make that quite easily. And for a number of users, they were quite happy with that. But we did have a set of users that would prefer their outline view to reflect how they'd ordered their thinking in the diagram view. And so that's why we spent a lot of time and energy in terms of introducing this DiagramSync feature. But what we've also done is given the users the choice as to whether they want to use that feature or not, because there are situations where you might want to create a diagram and have an outline view, but they are ordered differently. Say, for example, your outline may be ordered because, yes, you're going to use that from an essay writing perspective, but your diagram view, you may lay it out in a way that makes sense for you visually. Perhaps you're going to be using that for revision and you want that sorted differently. So it's down to the user whether they want to use that feature or not. And again, that was through user feedback. That was something that was very important. They wanted that choice, that their outline view could reflect their diagram view, but only if they wanted that to happen. And that was particularly, say, for our users that were on the autistic spectrum, where they wanted their diagram to be set out in one way, and they wanted to make sure that they could set out their outline in a different way in terms of the hierarchy. And so you'll see how, when I do a product demonstration, how this particular feature operates. Now, just to reflect in terms of how inspiration orders your thinking visually when you go into the outline view. And so for some users, it's not necessarily that clear. So the actual default sorting, when you move from your diagram view to your outline view, is by order of linking. So the order in terms of how you thought about it, but most importantly, how you link that up. Now, if you're using a rapid fire tool with links, that will do that automatically. You know, you're thinking about it and it's automatically linking it. But if you create your ideas, your symbols first, and then do the linking afterwards, then it becomes very clear how that ordering works. So it's by order of linking is the default sorting in the outline view. So producing this feature, the DiagramSync, we had to sort of step back and to try and reflect in terms of how users map and how they would want effectively the reflection of their ideas visually to be reflected in terms of the hierarchy when they moved over to the outline view. And so we talked to lots of users, did lots of testing, and obviously was trying to come up with rules that would make sense to the user in terms of if they are working visually, how would they tell us visually or tell the software visually what is the starting position? How's the software going to know what's the hierarchy? And so there are 3 different rules that are applied based on how a user is mapping out their ideas visually. So one is a web format in this view, and where they've got their topic and they've got their supporting ideas and they're going round in a circle. So what we've said is it would work in a clockwise fashion. So if, say, for example, their idea 1, their first supporting idea was here, and they positioned it in this position, because it's in the 1 o'clock position or nearest to it, that would be the order of priority. That would be the first idea. This one going in a clockwise position would be idea 4, would be the second, idea 2 would be the third, and idea 3 would be the last. So if we look at this from an outlining perspective, this is just a snapshot of what that would look like. So I've labeled it up in terms of their order of linking. So idea 1 was the first idea that they linked. So this is the default sorting by order of linking. Their second idea that they linked, the third idea that they linked, and a fourth idea that they linked. And they might have done that right at the beginning, and the diagram may have not looked anything like this. But as they look at the diagram and they're reflecting in terms of the order of how these ideas are connected up and how they want to position it, they might want to say, well, actually, I'm going to visually reorder this. So I want my idea 1 to be the first idea, my idea 4 to be the second idea that's shown in my outline. My idea 2 will be the third, and my idea 3 will be the fourth. So when they click the sync button, inspiration will look at that component of the diagram. It will see that it's in a web format, and it will say, right, okay, going from my default syncing, my default sorting by the order of linking, because this student has rearranged their diagram in a web format, it's going in a clockwise format, and the 1 o'clock position is the starting position. When they click it, the outline will change to idea 1, idea 4, idea 2, and idea 3. So hopefully, as I talk through this, will start to make sense, and it will make even more sense when I actually show you this in action. But what I'm trying to do here is just explain how inspiration looks at each part of a diagram, works out how that diagram is laid out, and then starts to apply rules if a student wants to use a visual approach to order their thinking when they move over to the outline view. So that's one. The next is a tree format. So, and this is a top-down approach. So they've got their ideas here. Again, I've got it labeled similarly. So idea 1, idea 2, idea 3, idea 4 is representing their order of linkings. So how they link those ideas up and the sequence of doing that. And here, just looking at a screenshot of the outline, what it would naturally do in the outline as a default setting is it would say idea 1, idea 2, idea 3, and idea 4. So the order of linking. If the student clicks the sync button, now in this particular diagram setup, the rule's different. So the priority is given from the left to the right. So the student puts their first idea that they want in their outline to be positioned here. So the starting position, the second here, the third, the fourth. And so when they click the sync button, it will look at this rule and apply that rule to the outline view. 1, 4, 2, 3. Now the other approach is a tree approach, but it's looking at it from a left or right tree. And so very similarly, it's labeled up in terms of order of linking. So this was the first idea that was linked. This was the second idea that was linked. This was the third idea that was linked. And this was the fourth idea that was linked. But in this example, it's from the top to the bottom in terms of the hierarchy, in terms of determining how it will be sorted when they switch over to the outline view. And because the student has organized it in this way, when they click the sync button, it will show us idea 1, 4, 2, 3, based on how they've mapped the ideas visually. And so these are the 3 basic rules that Inspiration will use to calculate how, if a student decides to use the DiagramSync tool to rearrange their outline based on how they've organized their ideas visually, how it will translate that across. So now, before I jump into the software, I'm just going to touch on the 2 other features I'm going to show to you so that then we can then go into the software and spend some time in there rather than hopping and skipping between the PowerPoint and the software itself. So the other features that I'll show you is the drag and drop feature. So we've improved on that feature. We've widened the number of files that can be supported by dragging and dropping directly into your documents. The reasons why we focused on that was we wanted this to speed up the process of being able to quickly bring in all of the supporting material that you were using as part of your project. So as well as the features that we've got, like the rapid fire tool that makes it very fast to capture your ideas, we wanted to speed up the process of getting all of that supporting material within your document as well. So that was one particular emphasis. The other one that was a number of users were asking for was being able to import in documents within Inspiration so that they could use that material to actually create diagrams from. So say if a student had a page of notes, say for example that they had captured from a lecture or class, then they could import that in and use that material to create a diagram rather than having to key in again. And so based on, and I'll show you the format, based on doing some formatting of their notes, they could then bring that in within Inspiration and use that to start to take those notes and then organize those notes more visually. So again, I'll show you those features. Right, so let's launch the software. It's going to share my screen again. And screen 2. Right, so I'm going to launch the software. Actually, just shared the wrong screen. Spare a second. There we go. So as I'm just focusing on, the new stuff within Inspiration, I'm not going to go into too much detail in terms of all of the features within Inspiration. But obviously, if you're familiar with Inspiration 9 or even 8, this will look very familiar in terms of the starter screen. And we've got our diagram view and the map view. And also we've got the outline view as well. So for this particular demonstration, I'm going to focus on the diagram view because particularly the DiagramSync is really for the diagram view feature and also for the actual feature of importing in notes. So if I open that up, and so I've got my main idea in the middle, and what I want to do first is actually bring in, capture some ideas. Now, traditionally, for example, I might have gone in and used the rapid fire tool with links or without links to quickly get those ideas in. But perhaps I have got a page of notes already and I just want to bring it in. Now, I'm just going to slightly minimize this screen so you can see my desktop as well. So hopefully you can see my desktop. And I'm just going to show you two files. So Inspiration can bring in and import in text files and RTF files, so two file formats that very popular word processing packages can output to, so universal formats. So I'm going to do a very basic import with a text file and just explain the file format so you can then understand how Inspiration is going to import it in. So we've got a note, a text file here. And you've got this set up. So what Inspiration does is it looks at these texts and then tries to determine what's a keyword or phrase that's going to be used to create a symbol and what's going to be the notes that's going to be attached to it. So the very first line will be determined to be the keyword or phrase that will be the label for a symbol. Now, any text that's immediately after it will be then classified as a note that will be attached to that symbol. It will then see that there's a line break. So it says, right, okay then, so new idea, chemical structure. So that is will then be created as a new symbol and will be labeled as such, chemical structure. Now there's no text immediately after it, so it knows that there won't be any notes attached to it. It will then come across with a new line break and it will see H2O. And so with that, it knows that will then be a new symbol. It will label it H2O. But because there's text immediately straight after it, it will know then that to create a note and attach it to that symbol. And so on as you work through. So let's import that in and you'll see that in action. So just go to File, nothing special to do, and go Open. I'll go to my desktop. Got notes. And as you can see, it will take me to the outline view. And you can see here, it's created my topic titles and the notes attached to it. Now, because it's got no hierarchy, it doesn't know that. All of these are classified as main ideas at the moment. I can then go to the diagram view and you'll see that all of these symbols have been created. You can also see, as you could see in the outline, the notes have been attached to them based on the files and any text that preceded a keyword or phrase. And then what I can then do is start to create some organization around it. So the topic is around water. And looking at this, I can then start to link them up. States, solid, liquid, look at chemical structure, molecules, etc. So obviously from that page of notes on there, starting to look at that and then start to organize that. And as you can see, that's now being reflected in my outline in terms of a very clear hierarchy between the main idea, the main topics and the supporting topics. And I've got my notes attached to it. Now, so that's bringing in a text file. Now you can also, using a Word, for example, and I'm going to bring in another example here. So I've got a Word document, and within here, I've got the similar type of notes, but I'm using style headings that are available within Word. Heading 1, so that tells me that that's going to be the main idea. Headings 2, which will be my main topics. So you'll see that some of them have got headings 2. Headings 3 will be supporting topics of a main topic. And as you can see, some of them have got immediately some preceding notes, which when Inspiration imports that in, it will automatically create notes for it. So let's close that file down and we'll bring in this example. Again, very similar, just open the file. As you can see, I've now got my outline created. And this is where it's different now, because it uses those style headings to know what is the hierarchy. And so it knows what's the main idea, because that was a H1, heading 1. We've got my H2s and the H3s are the supporting ideas. And so you've got a very clear hierarchy. Because of that, when you go to the diagram view, you've got all the links created. Now, at the moment, it looks a bit higgledy-piggledy, but I can obviously use the arrange tool. So I can have that in a web. And obviously now I've got more of a structure or a tree. So based on my preference, I can obviously structure my ideas, and it's automatically linked up as well. So using style headings, you can effectively give Inspiration the instructions in terms of the hierarchy, in terms of what's the main idea, the main topics and the supporting topics. And so you can utilize your notes to populate and use that to generate your diagram. So that's that particular feature. Now, what we're going to do is actually use this to continue mapping and introduce you to some of the other features that I wanted to look at, which was the dragging and dropping. So I'm just going to build up on this so that I can show that particular feature as well. Okay, I'm going to do it in a web format. So I'm just going to change it back to that one. And again, I'm going to minimize it because I've got some stuff on here that I want to add in. So topics water, I've got an image for water. I can then just drop that in, as you can see, drops in, changes in. Now, obviously, I've got my symbols library here with over 3,500 odd different images and symbols. But, you know, what we wanted to do was make it really easy to find other images, you know, to support the whole dual coding approach to Inspiration, where, you know, we are very passionate about, you know, if you've got a keyword or phrase, the verbal cues to explain an idea, as much as possible to support that with a visual cue, because very much the premise being that for most of us, our brains are engineered to think in pictures. And generally, you know, when we have an idea, our brains tend to, you know, associate an image with an idea. So if I say the word apple, for most of us, we'll visualize a picture of an apple. So if we can build up our documents in that way, where one, in terms of, again, just stimulating those cognitive processes in terms of finding suitable images to communicate our ideas visually, it helps to imprint that idea from our short to medium to long term. And so if we're using these maps to help in terms of revision, recall, just those pictures alone could help us to recall the information that's behind that picture without necessarily having to go back into the notes, etc., that are associated with it. So let's look at building this up. So we've got liquid, state, solid. Oh, no, didn't want to do that. Goes from this one, gas. Might add a note to this here. So I could do, click on the notes here, or use the shortcut, Control Y. Where the molecules are moving more quickly. Okay, let's look at adding in some stuff. So obviously from our symbols library, we have some stuff here. Let's go to science. We'll go to physical science. So we have got images that we can bring in to help with the visual cues. Just going to build up on this map. So let's look at liquid. Just going to do a bit of a rapid fire. So we're looking at cloud, fog, rain, I'll add a note to it, Control Y, example cloud. Again, let's look at, as well as dragging and dropping onto the main document, I've got a picture of a cloud here. I can drop that into a note very quickly, just make that a bit bigger. And you can see I've got that image of a cloud within there. So each note can have, as well as up to 8 A4 pages, it also can include an image as well. Add in living things. Animals. Again, I've got a animated GIF. I can drag that on, and you can see that's within there. Okay, molecules. Let's dig a bit deeper into that one. Heat. Let's look at weather and climate. Got an image there. Bring that in. Let's bring in a sun. So far I've been dragging and dropping in images that embed straight in, but I've got a video. So a TED Talk, just drop that in. So an MP4 file can just be dragged in, connect that up. So I've got obviously a thumbnail that tells me it's a video, and I can click on that and play that back. So for videos, it will actually embed it within the document. So inspiration becomes a very multimodal environment where you've got images, you've got video, you've got audio. That can all be.
I'm a climate scientist, and I hate.
Now, I might have a lecture recording. So I've got an MP3 file, I can drag that in. It creates a symbol. I can connect that up. As you can see here, I've got a quick control to tell me that there's now audio attached to it. And if I then play that back, hopefully it will come through the webinar software. It's going to play that recording back.
Hi, this is Reeza here, and I'm dragging and dropping an MP3 file to show you how it works within Inspiration when you do this.
So hopefully that was playing back, and that you could hear that, as well as the video actually. So that's just an audio recording. And so with images, video and sound, it's embedded within the document, but you might have other external documents that you want to quickly link to this. Say, for example, You want easy referencing back to that source material. So for example, I might have a PDF file. I could drag that in. You'll see then it will have a thumbnail of a PDF. I can connect that up. You can see it's got the labeling of the document. And then if I click on it, it will open it. Same with a Word document. As you can see, the thumbnail appears for that particular document type. And again, if I opened it, it would open up. So it's a very easy, quick way to access all of those material for that particular project. If you're, say, looking at it back, say 2 to 3 months from a revision perspective and need to go back to it. And if, say, for example, you use software like Audio Note Taker to support note taking, and you might have a .ran project file, I can drag that in. See, you've got the thumbnail of the actual application, hyperlinked already. Click on it. It will open up the application and also the actual project file itself. So what we've done is made it really quick and easy to get all of that supporting material within your actual file itself. Just as, you know, we've using tools like the rapid fire tool to quickly capture those ideas, we've improved on the speed in terms of getting all of those documents in as well that you might be using to support those ideas. Now I'm going to go back now to talking about DiagramSync so you can actually see it in action. And so we've got a web format here. So the perfect scenario to look at the actual web style way of organizing my ideas. Now, just to say that your diagram can be a mix. So you can have one part of your diagram which is web style, another part that is tree, top down, another part which is tree left or right. Inspiration will look at each node, determine the style and apply the correct rule. So let's look at gas, and so we've got lecture slides, water notes and lecture recordings. Let's go to the outline view. So we've got lecture slides, water notes, lecture recording within here. Say prosing, for example, we wanted to change it. So it's pretty much, if you remember the slides, and I was talking about the rule for a web format, which was clockwise, and the starting position being 1 o'clock. If say I wanted, for example, water notes to be the first one. Now, if I go and do that, inspiration won't automatically change it. It's waiting for the user to decide, do they want to have that change made? If the user does decide to do it, up here at the top, they can click on the sync tool. And now you can see water notes is first, lecture slide is second, lecture recording is third in the sequence that I've got here. I don't necessarily have to go into the outline view to use that sync feature. I can, you know, just click on the sync tool as I'm working through, and I don't have to do one change at a time. I could do lots of changes and then press the sync tool and it will just do all of it at once. So that's looking at the web format. The second, obviously, arrangement is a tree. It's obviously easier for me to do the whole diagram like this and to do it like that. So we've got the tree format and let's look at it. So we've got lecture record. We'll use the same section as well. Lecture recording, water notes and lecture slides. Let's see how it's sorted in the outline view. So it is different at the moment. Water notes, lecture slides, lecture recording. Let's really play around with this. So if I then now go back to the outline view, and let's change it so it's different. Here we go. So let's look at it. Lecture slides first, water notes and lecture recording. Water notes, lecture slides, lecture recording. So it's obviously not the same as I've got it visually organized. But now if I press the sync button, it will now reflect how I've organized it in the diagram view. So for particular users of dyslexia, and this is where particularly this demand has come from, where traditionally you would go in and say if you wanted to change things, you would just drag and drop. We had a cohort of those that were more on the visual side who said, no, I don't want to do it that way. I just want to rearrange it in here and have my outline reflect that ordering. And so that's why this particular feature was introduced for it. So hopefully that's given you some examples. Let's look at it again. Let's do a, I don't want to do that. Let's go to more, do tree, do right, do okay. So it's just the other rule. So let's look at it. States, liquid, solid, gas. Let's look at it in the outline view at the moment. States, liquids. I'm just going to hide this so that you can see it all at once. Liquid, solid, gas. So it is in that arrangement. But if I wanted to change it, so I'm someone that's very visual. So it's solid, liquid, gas. Go to here. Change, click on the thing, and now it's changed it. Solid, liquid, gas. So for these particular users that like the visual approach, it helps them to reorganize their outline based on how they've ordered their thinking from a diagramming perspective. Okay, so that's hopefully given you a good overview in terms of the new features. Hopefully I haven't particularly got you lost on the DiagramSync. I know there's a few rules there to remember, to understand how the relationship between the diagram view and the outline view, and how then Inspirations determines how the ordering of the outline view is based on how a user map is visually. If they want to use the DiagramSync feature, how it then translates that accordingly. Let's go back now to the PowerPoint slides. Just going to switch my screens. Just bear a second. So I've got multiple screens here, so just got to make sure that you can see the right one. So hopefully you're back with the slides, and let's go back to where we were. So we've talked about all of the key features that we've introduced. Just obviously we've been doing lots of webinars and demonstrating the software. So I just wanted to go through the commonly asked questions that we've had, showing version 10. And so we'll go through that. And then what I'll then do is at the end of this session, we'll then have the opportunity where if you've got other questions or you want to clarify anything, we can go through that live within the session. So is Inspiration Maps for iOS, so the app for iPads and iPhones, compatible with Inspiration 10? So yes, Inspiration 10 is compatible with the app. You can import Inspiration Maps file within Inspiration 10 and export Inspiration 10 files into the app. Another question, will Inspiration 9 be able to open Inspiration 10 files and vice versa? Again, the answer is yes, particularly as we know that there are so many millions of users of Inspiration 9 who have invested lots of time in terms of creating those documents. So we wanted an easy way for them to obviously be able to migrate to version 10 and still have access to those documents. So Inspiration 10 uses the same file format as Inspiration 9. So if you upgrade, there is no issue in terms of opening up the Inspiration 9 files. And also, if you are, say, for example, you might have an institution where you've got Inspiration 10 and you've got Inspiration 9 users, those files can be exchanged with not having to do anything special. They'll open up natively in either one of those versions. So a common question we've got is Inspiration 10 available for Mac? So currently it's only available for Windows, and the other offering is Inspiration Maps, which is available for iOS, so iPads and iPhones. But Apple are releasing macOS Big Sur, which is their next upgrade, major upgrade to their operating system. And so they are due to launch it towards the end of this year. And as part of that launch is their grand vision of where an app can be created that will run on an iOS device and a Mac OS device. And so Inspiration Maps is actually published by another company called DiagramSync. We published the Windows version. They published the iOS version. But they also, the plan is that they will, once Big Sur has, there seems to be an issue with screen sharing at the moment. So just bear a second. Sorry, just a bit of a technical glitch going on with my monitor at the moment. So I may have to reset sharing screen again. I'm not sure what's going on. Share screen.
All of us technologists in the room, it's too bad we couldn't just hop on a plane and come over and help you, Reeza.
Right, okay. I'm not sure. One of my monitors, I've got two monitors, and for some reason, one monitor has decided it's going to keep on shutting down, which then confuses. Right, so let's. I assume you can still see my screen, yeah?
At this point, we're no. At this point, we're just seeing the Zoom screens.
Okay.
Not your screen share. I think it's the time difference, Reeza. Normally on a Friday at this time, your computer is probably fast asleep.
Yeah, it's just decided. Right, okay. Zoom is saying that it's sharing the screen. So what's going on here? Hold on. Let me stop sharing. Screen 2. Right. Okay.
There, it's coming back up.
Okay, cool. Right. Apologies for that. Yeah, so I was just saying with Big Sur, once that's launched, then the next step is that Apple will provide the toolkit for diagramming apps, and they will be able to migrate Inspiration Maps, do the re-engineering works. That will then be the Mac version. So they're hoping to start development on the Mac version of Inspiration Maps in 2021, as soon as Apple have provided that toolkit for them. So I guess it's just watch this space. Now, another question that comes up, who's eligible for a free upgrade to version 10? So basically, any customer who has purchased Inspiration 9 since January of 2020, as well as students and employees in receipt of Inspiration via various different disability funding programs. So we know, particularly within Canada, we have lots of students who purchase from us and then claim back via the university college, via the bursary. And so for those students that have purchased from us since January, we have emailed them to tell them that they are eligible for a free upgrade and the process for upgrading to version 10, because we are enthusiastic that they are using the latest version. So I do recognize some of the colleges and universities that are on this session. So if you do come across a student who is using Inspiration 10 but has purchased it since January of this year but still hasn't upgraded, let them know that they are still eligible to upgrade to version 10, and we'll be more than happy to handhold them through the process of getting to version 10. Also, any customer who has purchased a site license subscription this year is also eligible for a free upgrade to version 10. Those particular customers have been notified that they can go to that next version. So it's the site licenses where you pay annually for it. Okay, so those are the common questions. Now, pricing is another one. So obviously, we sell across the world, but for Canada, it's 98 Canadian dollars. And obviously, if you're interested in volume licenses and site licenses, we do offer special pricing for that as well. And our site licenses, we do have options where that does include student-owned devices, which obviously is quite advantageous at the moment with this whole blended learning approach and students not necessarily being on campus and being at home. So those institutions with those site licenses are able to just say to the students, install it on your own device. Okay, so this is where I'm really interested in terms of your feedback. So we launched version 10 last month, but we're already thinking about what's going to be in our next major update. And so there were two particular features that we want to introduce. Whether we can do both, that would be great, but it may be that we have to do one on another. So what I wanted to do was to get your feedback in terms of our approach for each one of those features, and also in terms of what you think we should prioritize on if we have to choose one over the other. So the first feature that I want to look at is our referencing citation feature that we want to add in. So a lot of users, institutions have asked us to introduce this, and it's something that we're very keen to do. And so I've got some a wireframe here that's really talking about the user journey, and I'll talk you through it. So a user, a student, as normal, will visually map out their ideas. Now, one thing that has always been fed to us is, and as you saw when I was demonstrating the software, is that you can add notes to each one of the symbols. And they are small, you can drag them, as you saw that I did, make them a bit bigger. But we wanted a quick way of users being able to, if they've got a lot of text that they want to enter in, that they had a bigger space for it. So what we want to do is for the ability for a user to be able to double click on the title bar for a note. It will automatically take it to the bottom and expand on it so that there's a bigger real estate, put in more text than say the notelets that you've got. So one, it just makes it easier if there's a lot of text that you want to type in or paste in, for example, from another source. What it also does is it gives us real estate to now add in some other features. So one of the features is if you are a user of Inspiration, before or even now with version 10 currently, you can't add bullets within your notes. So one, if you wanted to add some bullets, then you would highlight it, click on the bullets tool like you'd do with Word, and you can bullet your text. But the key feature that we want to add is referencing. So if, say, for example, you had typed in some text and you wanted to add in some referencing, you would highlight that text and then click on the referencing tool. It would then bring up a new menu option here, the referencing source tool. It would also come up if you were to paste in some text from another source, say from a website. Now let's explain how this works. So what it will do is this will come up when you click on the referencing tool or you paste in some text, and it will ask you to populate with some key information: the author, the date, title of the publication, page number, the publisher, and a URL if it was a web link that you were going to. Once you've entered that information in, you click on the plus button, and it would now add it to a set of referencing. You'll see down here these crosses, which would mean that if you wanted to change your mind, you could click on it and it would delete it. We also have this option here where you could choose the referencing style. So Harvard, MLA, APA. Now, these are the common referencing style formats that you find within UK universities or within faculties. So obviously it would be good to know the types of referencing styles that, you know, colleges and universities are using within Canada, for example, so that we can obviously meet those needs. We have had feedback that we might need to have a custom style, because even within a university and between different faculties, they all have their own different styles. So it's something that we're looking at. But it may be that at the beginning, we just stick to standard styles of referencing. So if, say, for example, the default might be Harvard, but your organization uses MLA, you'd click on that and it would then show you here that style of referencing. So you can preview it. And the idea being is then when you go to your outline view, as well as your topics and subtopics and all of your notes showing, there will be a page at the end, which will be your bibliography section. And within there will be listed all of your referencing. So obviously referencing is very important. And so hence why we are keen to add this particular feature in. And again, you could have multiple pieces of text. So each piece of text phrase that you highlight and click on the referencing tool, you could have multiple items within a note. So you're not restricted to one reference per note. You could have multiple references because it's associated with the text that you've highlighted, not the whole note. So that's one particular feature. Now, what I want to do is get your feedback. So I'm going to launch a poll to get your feedback on this. So I'm just going to launch it. And basically what I want is your feedback in terms of what I've presented in terms of the process. Is this a good approach? You don't agree with it? Or maybe. So it'd be just really useful just to get your view. I mean, from our perspective, what we're trying to do is make this as simple as possible. And so it's trying to get that feedback now. So, okay, so in general, it's seen as a good approach. For some, it's umming and ahhing. Obviously, for those that are umming and ahhing, it would be good to get your feedback at some point in terms of where perhaps you think we might be missing a trick. This is really important for us getting this feedback. Okay, so that's fantastic. Let's now end that particular poll. I'm just going to share the results so you can see it. And I'm now going to go to talk about our next feature. Okay, so this was actually something when I did this presentation last to the N.O.A.T community was there were a lot of suggestions that we should introduce a split view feature where you can see both the outline and the diagram at the same time. And so obviously we went away and obviously reflected on that, and obviously we've been thinking about it. And so again, what I'm going to do is, again, these are wireframes, and just to talk you through the journey as well. So as a user, I've mapped out our ideas, my ideas visually. But what I want to do is I don't want to go into the outline view. I don't want to necessarily go into there and start editing. What I want to do is just get a sense of the direction of how the outline is developing based on how I'm visually thinking of my ideas and how I'm connecting those ideas. Because particularly in terms of how those ideas are connected, is really important then in terms of the hierarchy within the outline view. And perhaps if you could see those connections happening in the and how the impact of that on the outline view, immediately you might decide to change how those connections are done visually. And so to do that, what we're looking at is obviously introducing a new button called the outline preview. It wouldn't necessarily be positioned here, but there'll be a button, outline preview. And what that will do then is it will split the screen into two. So your right-hand side will retain your diagram. Your left-hand side now will open up with a pane. Now, this isn't an editing pane. This is not to take over from the outline view, because particularly our outlining tool is very popular, and it's also a proven and very popular study skills approach in itself. You know, inspiration is designed not just to work within a visual view, but you can purely work within the outline view. But we wanted a way of being able to introduce that sense of being able to see the outline developing as you mapped out your ideas visually. So the pane opens up and you can see how your outline is developing as you're doing that. Now, initially, it might be just a snapshot. And so you can preview it, and then when you're ready to then make edits, you'd close it and then you'd make some more changes. That might be step one. Our ideal scenario is actually that as you've opened it, you could actually be editing it and it will dynamically update within here. That is our goal. That is our ambition. That's something that we want to do. Whether we can do that all at once or whether we have to do a two-step process, that obviously is dependent on in terms of the technical nature of being able to implement this feature. So it could be in the first instance, it's a static preview that you then close and then continue editing. Or we could make that leap in one go where it's a dynamic leap forward, and you, as you're working, this is dynamically updating automatically. And then when you then just want to work through purely within a diagram view, you'd either close the preview, or if you then want to switch to the outline view to do actually editing of your outline, you could switch to outline view, and then that will take you straight to the outlining feature within the software. So the idea of this, just to recap, is to give the student, the user, the ability to be able to see how their outline is developing in the process of developing their map. And we would introduce this for both the diagram view and the map view. So again, I want to get your views. So I'm just going to launch the poll again. Got another one. Launch poll. And so this time, what we're asking for is, do you see the value of us adding this to the experience of the students? So I'll give you some time just to put your votes in. Okay, seems to be settled down. And so I'm going to end it and share the results. So the yes has well, actually, that snuck in just before I shared the results. So it's an even split between yes and maybe, and no one saying no. So again, really useful feedback for that. Again, particularly for those that are a maybe, it would be great to get your feedback in terms of where you think perhaps we're missing a trick. There's something that you think we are not thinking about in terms of this process that you think would genuinely then mean that you think, yes, this would add value to the student's experience. Okay, so let's stop sharing that. And what I'm going to do now is a third poll, which is we would love to do both of these, but obviously both of these are quite big updates, and we may find that we have to choose one over the other. So this poll is, if we had to choose, what would you recommend that we would choose first? And actually, I've just realized I'll launch it and I'll explain it. So it is supposed to be referencing citation tool as one option, and then outline view as the outline preview as the other option. So it was supposed to be two options. I didn't spot that when we were going through the polling. So if you could choose either the referencing tool or the outline preview as to which one we think we should be prioritizing on first. Okay. Votes are coming in. Looks like it's settling down. And I think that's in. So I'll end that and I will share the results. So on the whole, the referencing tool is the clear lead. Obviously then with the outline preview, ideally for us, we'd love to do both at once. But if we have to choose, then obviously this, as well as other polls and feedback we're getting from others, we'll obviously then we'll have market feedback in terms of what we should be providing. I have to say that so far the referencing tool has tended to be the one that is the popular choice in terms of a priority. So thank you very much for that feedback. So that's all of the polling. That's everything that I was going to show you. So I guess it's an opportunity now just to see if you've got any questions.
Okay, there are some questions in the chat here, Reeza, that I'll go through. I just wanted to also, I'm not sure if you were planning on doing this afterwards or not. I know we've gone a little over time, which it's a lot of great information that you've been able to share and valuable feedback that we've been able to provide right to the developer of inspiration. So that's fantastic. So appreciating that people have stayed with us. Those who may still have to go, I know that we promised them the contact information and that to be able to get their own evaluation copy in that at the end of the webinar. So I'm not sure if you had a slide for that.
I don't actually. So if you'd like so basically, if you need a license for demonstration, training purposes, for assessment, but purely because you've attended today, then we do offer a free license. So to do that, you can email inspiration@techedmarketing.com and just say that you attended the N.O.A.T webinar, and we'll get a license across to you. So if I put that into the chat.
Great. I was just going to confirm that I had it typed right, but you can type it better than I can.
Yeah, if I can find the controls. So let's have a look. So if I go into the chat, but I'm just going to, where's my chat gone? Maybe because I'm sharing screen at the moment. Just bear a second. Up now I can see it. Right. So email inspiration at TechEd. TechEd marketing.com. Okay, so
great. Thanks, Reeza.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just send us an email. We'll get that license across to you.
Okay, so going through the questions that have come in through the chat, and if anybody has any other questions, please add them into the chat, or at this point, if you unmute your microphone, when we see an unmuted microphone, we'll call on you and allow you to ask your question by voice if you'd like as well. So starting off with some of the questions that were in the chat, Jim was asking whether when you drag a large image, external image, will inspiration size it appropriately to icon size?
No, that's a good question. No, it doesn't. So if you do bring in a big image, it will be a big image. But obviously then with inspiration, if I just, it is quite quick and easy just to obviously resize images. The only time that it will automatically resize it is if you import it into your symbols library. And then in that circumstance, inspiration does do automatic resizing to symbol size.
Perfect. Michelle had asked whether there be a Mac version available and an ETA on that. I think you answered that quite sufficiently with your FAQ that you brought up there, so that's great. If there's further questions about that, Michelle, please add that into the chat or unmute yourself. We've got Michelle asking as well if there was a way to keep the sync on, so it's always syncs like before.
It isn't at the moment. That's a good suggestion. No one's suggested that before. And so I might add that on because obviously if you just want to always have it synced up, then, you know, it will be a time saving aspect. So I'll add that to our wish list on our development roadmap. Okay.
So we'll call that the Michelle feature if you're able to show that in the final version. So thank you, Michelle. And Anne has asked if this is available for individual students, since we are all working remotely.
Yes, definitely. I mean, it's offered as an individual license, as well as volume licenses and site licenses for institutions. And so, I mean, particularly currently at the moment, say, for example, as I think I said earlier, there are lots of students who buy it individually and then claim back the money via various, you know, bursary funds that are available via their university, or the university is buying volume licenses and we're allowing them to then have it installed onto the students' own devices. The other option is that if you go for one of our site license subscriptions, you can go for a student take what we call our student top-up license, which means basically every single student in the university can install Inspiration 10 onto their own Windows device. And so there is no limit to how many students can install it on. It's a model that we've had for years, so it's not specifically for COVID. It's just something that we've always seen as important, that, you know, for students, for them having it on their own devices, the preferred route. And also when the student leaves the university, they can continue using that software because it's a perpetual license. And so they have that software to transition onto their next stage in life.
I'd like to just highlight something you just said, which surprises me. It's kind of unheard of in my experience, is that you're saying the license can actually be continued even after they're a student. Does that also include the future upgrades within the same version?
Within the same version, yes. So if, say, for example, they were given version 10 and left the university, they can continue using version 10. It's obviously then at some point in the future that, you know, say if they wanted to upgrade to the latest version, then they would contact us to pay for an upgrade, as, you know, any, you know, consumer would pay for an upgrade. But what we don't do is do a hard stop that because they've finished their course, they can't use the software. We just allow them to use the software as long as they need to.
Okay, that's fantastic. I don't know what else to say without using just a bunch of synonyms. So thank you for putting the students at the forefront of your thinking there.
That's right.
Anne has a couple different questions in here, and the next one that Anne had listed was how much is the site license and whether it's calculated by numbers or how is it calculated. So I would suspect that that's something that people would need to get in touch with you directly about.
Yeah, it's basically in general, it's based on the student population for the institution. So you just tell us how many students that you've got, what we call the full-time equivalent number of students, and then your university or college will fall into a certain band, and we provide obviously a quote based on that. And you can it's split. So you could choose to have just a pure site license, which is just for institution machines, or you could choose to top up. To be honest, it's not that much more, just to top up so that your students all can have access to it. And so generally it's only 30% more than the base price. So if you're interested, you just give us the number of students at your university, and within 24 hours, we can give you a pricing for it.
Okay. All right, that's great. Chan has asked a question of, are you able to access Inspiration Program on the web and store your files in the cloud?
You can't at the moment. That is something that's on our roadmap in terms of a web version of Inspiration. We are looking at a virtual desktop version as well, which might come sooner, where basically they would download an app, and obviously the software is served remotely in the cloud and that they can access it. But at the moment, it is a locally installed application. It doesn't save to the cloud, but again, that's on our roadmap. What we want to do is have the ability to add in your Google account or Office 365 account so that you can save directly to Google Drive or OneDrive or Dropbox. So those are features that we're hoping to add to the next major update to Inspiration.
Okay, perfect. Right, and Anne has got another question about can the windows be resized? I'm not exactly certain where that fell in the webinar. So if Anne, if you could just put into the chat or that and let us know exactly where or what windows you might be referring to. And I apologize. I'm just going into the security settings here. I mentioned that people can unmute themselves, and as Jim has just kindly made me aware, is that I forgot to uncheck the can't unmute yourself. So now you should be able to unmute yourself if anybody does want to ask a question by voice, and Jim will get to you in just a second when I see unmute it there. And speaking of which, Jim has actually asked a question of, or just made a comment. He says that he's finding the name of the sync feature could be confusing for students, as the term sync typically refers to web applications. So some feedback there for you, Reeza.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, trying to come up with a name is always difficult. We had various different versions, and in the end, we just went with sync. I think it was my son that in the end came up with a name, so we just went, let's go with sync. So
Okay.
Set in stone.
Perfect. Okay, and Anne has clarified viewing in resizing the windows when it's viewing the outline and map view.
All right, so the split screen. We weren't thinking of doing that, but again, that's something that we could consider.
Okay, perfect. So another N.O.A.T influenced feature that might be making it to the final version.
Yep.
And Jim had additionally added in his response to to your question about the split screen, and that he just said no to it if it wasn't a live version. So obviously the live version, I think, is going to be very valuable.
Yep.
Yeah. And Anne has another question, sorry, Jim, I still haven't seen your microphone unmuted. So if you're ready to ask your question by voice, then by all means. No. Okay, so Anne has asked whether this meets the WCAG standards. I think that might be a typo for the WCAG or WCAG.
Yeah, so with version 10, it had never gone through an external verification. So when version 10 was launched, we did commission a company to do that verification for us and to do an audit of our software against WCAG and also against the US 508 standard. And so on our website, let me just bring it up, we have published it, warts and all, okay, as to where it
I just stopped my sharing for you, Reeza, because I had the Q&A slide up. If you're wanting to show something on yours, just click the screen share.
yeah, let me just
and we'll get to you in just a second, Jim. I apologize if anybody else is having trouble unmuting their microphone. I'm not sure what's going on with the Zoom setting. So if you're wanting to do that and it won't let you, then please just in the chat say that you want to unmute and I can unmute you.
Right, I'm just going to bring up our website just so I can show you where you can find it. So if you go to our website, inspiration-at.com, and go to the Inspiration 10 page and then scroll down, and you can download our VPAT document, which was externally done because we felt as if it needed to be externally verified rather than us as a publisher doing it. And so it gives you a conformance report for all of the key features against all of the various different standards and the levels that they reach. So for us, it either follows level A or level AA. And so you can see precisely against each one of those criterias where inspiration supports. I mean, there's certain areas where it's not applicable. So quite a detailed report, but also more importantly, it's giving us now, you know, a checklist in terms of what we need to be looking out for the next update. So we'll be working through and looking at the various different standards where we're perhaps falling a bit short on and improving on it.
Okay, all right, that's
so
great.
Yeah, you can see where we fail on and where we you know, meet those requirements.
Okay, perfect. And Jim, I think you're unmuted successfully finally, so please, apologies, but go ahead.
No worries, I typed it in the chat. But my question is, do you communicate with the Mac inspiration developers? Or if they develop it, will it be like a different program with the same name? Because it's not coordinated between you.
We are very coordinated. So we're two separate companies, but we work strategically, namely because they own the brand name Inspiration. So only one company can own the brand. So we own the product, but we don't own the brand. So so we have a very tight relationship in terms of, so you can see inspiration maps for a number of various different government initiatives in the UK. We're the actual partner for delivering inspiration maps. And we both use the same development team. So we have to make sure that because a selling point for both products is that they work together. And so we have to make sure that Inspiration Maps is working with Inspiration 10 and vice versa. So, so we're regularly talking to one another about, you know, our development roadmaps, how it's working. And obviously that's how I know, you know, what their plans are in terms of Inspiration Maps and their ability to obviously do that conversion work to Mac. So yeah, we're very closely intertwined between one another.
Okay, perfect. So thank you, Jim. Again, glad that we got you finally unmuted there. Again, if anybody else is trying to unmute and can't and wishes to, then please just raise your hand or, through the Zoom interface or add into the chat and I'll get you unmuted. And Jim,
yeah,
was just, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say also, just so you know, Diagramming Maps it's run by the daughter of the original founders and creators of Inspiration. So, and I've worked with her for 10 years. And so hence why it's a very close relationship. And that's why they own the brand name, is because it's their daughter that took the brand name whilst we took the product. Okay.
All right. And Jim was just adding in a comment as well that it would be great to be able to right click and have it resized. I think that was in relations to the images when you import them and having them come in at full size. So
okay, yeah, that's a good idea actually. Yeah, so you could just automatically have it go to rather than having to drag it. Yep.
Yeah. So at this point, I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat window, Reeza, and nobody's microphone is unmuted nor hands are raised. So just as we're kind of finalizing things here and wrapping up, I'm just going to take back the screen sharing for us again.
Yep.
And yeah, just if there's anybody that has any last minute questions, please do put them in. At this point, as we wrap up, I do just want to thank you very much, Reeza, for sharing with us the changes that have been made and seeing how far along inspiration has come. I think I could safely say that inspiration is finally growing up, and it's got a bright future ahead of it, and that's so. Whereas it had seemed to be having a growth. Be stunted in its growth there for a number of years, and we can all share stories about that, I'm sure. So thank you for taking this over and seeing it to its next incarnation.
Thank you very much. No, thank you for helping to organise this and give me the opportunity to obviously just, you know, particularly in terms of showcasing. I'm particularly interested in terms of getting feedback from the community. So it's obviously nice to show the new features, but more importantly for us is getting feedback.
And that's what we want to be able to do. The responsive developers such as yourself, we value the relationship as much, if not more, than you value it, because we are able to have the direct feedback channels. So it's fantastic to do that, Reeza.
Well, we want to make your lives easier. So you're not going to recommend our products if it's going to make your lives harder. So.
True, and I'll hand you over my to-do list if you want to make my life easier. Speaking of my to-do list, moving along here, I just want to remind those who are still with us and joining live, one of the benefits of today's webinar is that we're going to be able to move into a breakout room at the end and have a opportunity to speak further with Reeza if there's any other questions that you have or features that you want him to demonstrate. He's happy to stick around for a short while in that breakout room. So in a few moments, that will pop up on your screen if you want to accept the invitation. And yes, just again, thank you, Reeza. Your support of the assistive technology profession and the network of assistive technologists, it's greatly appreciated, as I mentioned a moment ago. We do want you to keep in touch with any other further updates, or if you're wanting to get some feedback from our members or the AT community, wider AT community, please keep that in mind. So
yeah, we love it, even if it's moaning or groaning. You know, we welcome it. So it's the only way that we keep sharp.
Okay, perfect. So lastly, for everyone that's here, thank you for joining us. And remember, you can't spell education without AT. And until next time, take care and stay safe. And just if you're wanting to join us in that breakout room, it'll be coming up in a moment.